Hi, my name is Jahanzir Bakai. Yesterday we had such a good presentation from various presenters. If I want to recap, yesterday we talked about the kind of like simulation where we talk about the twin robot, where you can simulate the real network into these some kind of simulation, where we want to kind of like present and if any failure happened on the real on the simulation, so you can debug and replicate easily. We talk about the SRv6, what is happening in the industry. We talk about the multiple deployment of microSID. So there was very good discussion talk about and yesterday, especially on the AI subject. One thing which sticks to my mind from the yesterday topic was there was AI for infrastructure, but we need to have infrastructure for the AI as well. So today I'm going to further talk about more segment routing, further enhance what we have talked and discussed yesterday, but primarily focus on what's happening in industries. 2 years back, we did some survey in 2022 with our partner, and it was a very hit survey because we were able to find out what's happening in segment routing, where the industry is going. So this year, we bring back the survey with the ACG again, and some of the key points we would like to highlight. While we were reviewing the survey result, I found out, and we found out, it has very good data for the service provider, our customer, as well as the vendor, plus all the analysts who want to go through this data and find out what's happening in the industry. So just to recap from the presentation point of view, in the last year, what we were main tracking was IP MPLS, from IP MPLS to SR MPLS, and IP MPLS to SRv6. And also, the early adopter SR MPLS v4, if they want to go to SRv6 in the first picture. So we kind of include the same logic in this year's survey as well, but we include some more topics. And these new topics comes with our interaction with the customer. So for the very first time, we also introduced the SR MPLS v6 question to our customer as well. And also, what we found out, we want to know what is the traffic engineering parameters they are using, especially on the traffic engineering part, and we also include the multicast question. So before I deep dive in the survey, it's very important to know the demographic of it. It was from the organization point of view, there was a fixed mobile operator, there's a mobile operator, and the fixed operator. So mostly, this is very good convergence point of view, and we check the most of the industry. So you can see 38% on the fixed mobile and 33% of the fixed mobile side, and a fixed operator on 9%. That's a kind of fair distribution of the organization point of view. Second most important part is the region. We grow across the global. From the North America to EMA to the Asia Pacific, fairly evenly distribution across the region. And the third most important point, we want to know why the customer are selecting a certain technology. When I was talking to a customer, and when we talk to a customer, we feel like there's a certain decision made on how much revenue a company is making. For example, if any company which we have like more than $5 billion of revenue, there is a tradition, they have an R&D lab where they can incubate a technology for more than 3 or 4 years, and they can test it out the technology before they roll out. So they have the flexibility and resource to really incubate the technology. And these are the areas where I see mostly SRv6 is popular. On the other hand, if you have less than $5 million revenue, maybe on the lower side, or tier 2 and tier 3, they would like to go for a stable solution. They want to know, make sure there's a technology is being widely adopted and proven technology, their use case has been done before they adopt. So some of the choices we have seen because of the revenue generation and what kind of resource are there at hand as well. So this is fair to include that. Another important part is that you have to look on the number of people we survey from 64. And this is important to understand because the sample size of the much larger picture. So there could be some people who say, oh, you didn't do this, and we have some disagreement. It's just because the sample size was 64. It's based on 64 customer that we have reached out. This is the response I'm going to show. So important thing that stand out from the 2022 to 2024 is that IP MPLS that increased, 43 to 78%. That's a sharp increase. Also, we say native IP almost flattened, is almost within the range. And layer 2 Ethernet goes down, which is kind of expected. Native IP also almost virtually stable. So one customer might have selected yes or no and forgot to select, but I'd say it's virtually tied. But look at the difference on the RSPTE and MPLS TP point. That's the biggest step. That's kind of prove that people are moving from the traditional technology, transport technology, to segment routing and moving forward. So that's the biggest increase you can see from 2022 to 2024 results. Furthermore, if we deep dive of segment routing plans versus no plan, that's you can see one of the proven technology is segment routing SRMPLS v4. It's de facto most of the deployed solution out there. And that's confirmed with our finding as well, that most of the RFI and RFP we receive is talk about a segment routing, but they do have planned and ask question about the SRMPLS v6 or in some case SRv6. The 39% of SRv6 is again indication SRv6 is getting popular. More and more customers reach out to us, talk about SRv6. That's by de facto is the most asked question from the customer as well. But it's interesting to see the 17% is also interesting SRMPLS v6. And that is what, that's the reason we include SRMPLS v6 question in this year as well. And that's kind of prove that some customer who cannot go to SRv6 would like to go SRMPLS v6. Further down the road, I will explain some of the differences why people want to go to SRMPLS v6, not SRv6 as well. This is really interesting chart. This chart is actually for us as a vendor is very important one, because that tells a timeline what customers are really thinking to deploy at what time. From the point of view, if you say deployed, this is happening right now. This year, it's already deployed. Look at the amount of 58% for SRMPLS v4. That indicates this is really, really popular. But look at the uptick on SRv6 side. From 9%, 23%, people are really focusing on SRv6. And as I mentioned, SRv6 in the beginning is mostly from the tier one and the people, customer who is earning more than $5 million. So this significantly increased SRv6 deployment and indicate people are really interested in SRv6. And SRMPLS v6, I have seen from this year, they deployed more, but they're still testing some amount of number and deploying in the next 2 years is 2%. So it's gradually decreasing. One more point I want to mention is this slide is that the planning and thinking is happening right now. So if you miss the board, from my point of view, this is the year from the deployment testing. This is the most deployment year we anticipate from our customer. Go to the next point. When we see the mix of chart, so the question comes up naturally, are their customer deploying more than one segment routing technology? So we try to overlap the technology with the answer we receive, and you can see the pure SRMPLS is 48%, that's a significant of it. Pure SRv6 is only 2%, and there is 0 customers deploying SRMPLS v6, which means nobody is deploying SRv6 standalone. But there are customers who have went to the SRv6 plane. But the question was that are there more than one SR technology deployed? The answer is yes. And we further drill down it. You can see the significant amount of customers who are deploying is SRMPLS v4 and SRMPLS v6, SRv6 together. And it's interesting to note there are customers, 15% is deploying SRv6 and SRMPLS v6. That's an interesting find. And actually, I have to ask ACG to double check this number when I get received number, and they again selected this number, that there are customers who are deploying the SRMPLS v6 and SRv6. No inclination toward the impression of all three. This is evidence, 0%. So no customer is selecting all three technology in their network. It's either SRMPLS v4, SRv6, is either SRMPLS v6 or SRv6. So don't, and then or SRMPLS v4 or SRMPLS v6. 2% are deploying both SRMPLS v4 and SRMPLS v6. Another important point that there are some customers who are transiting from IPv6 directly to SRv6. That's an interesting, again, point. So SRv6 is such a popular thing right now, and it's solving a futuristic problem that some customers are directly jumping from IPv6 without MPLS to directly SRv6. So if we further drill down the geographical location where the what customers are selecting SRv6 and SR MPLS-v4 versus SRv6 and SR MPLS-v6. This is also kind of like tells us like mostly in EMA and Asia Pacific, customers are selecting SRv6 and SR MPLS-v6. But look at the North America side. They are mostly, you can say 100% selecting SR MPLS-v4 or SRv6 in the section. And 50% of Asia Pac is selecting SR MPLS-v4 and SRv6 on their topology or in their network. Once we ask this question, then the next question is that, what is the deployment model? This is the most asked question as a PLM I have received from our customer. They want to migrate from existing technology to segment routing. Here we are not differentiating between SR MPLS-v4, SRv6. We are just referring to as segment routing. This is the most asked. And the customer asks, is it easy to migrate? Do we face some challenges? So we literally walk through them. And per my knowledge and per my interaction, this chart totally accurately represents what my understanding was. Most of the customer deploying SR segment routing technology as a greenfield, or they want to coexist with the intention to migrate to SR totally, or coexist and no migration. But look at the interworking. Interworking is the least selected option. And within the interworking, there are two flavors. We are talking about transport interworking, or we are talking about service interworking. And within the interworking, I've seen the customer may want to go for transport interworking if they have core has an existing technology or other technology, but they try to really avoid the service interworking. I will double-click on this point later on. But this kind of thing, majority of the customer who's selecting to migrate to a segment routing, they are selecting coexistence, greenfield, and coexistence with no migration. So let's talk about SRv6 outlook. Again, an interesting point from the 2022 to 2024. In 2022, only 13 customers had responded with SRv6 selection point of view. In 2024, it's almost double, 25 customers. And same ratio extended, like from the deployed, only 2% have deployed 2024, 9% deployed 2024, the segment routing SRv6. And 29% has planned to deploy within the next 2 years. That's significant improvement. That shows the direction from the SRv6 from the customer point of view. If you go to the next, compressed with uncompressed, we do not differentiate between the variation of the compressed. We just ask the question, compressed and uncompressed. 2022, again, from the 13 responder, 58% to 68% now 2024, and 40 to 32% still want to have uncompressed. In my opinion, what I found out, there are two types of customers who still deploying uncompressed. The early adopter of the SRv6 when technology was new and the compressed was not invented at that time. So they keep working with the uncompressed. And when I ask them, what is your SRT strategy going forward, they mention is going to be flex algo. And when we really need, then we migrate to compressed going forward. This is where Ciena shines, because we support both of them. We support compressed and uncompressed, and we have work and sit down with the customer and show them the plan, how they're going to migrate from compressed to uncompressed. I have a slide in the back. If I did not get enough time, then I will finish it up. But you can come to my booth, and I can explain all the migration process, how to go from uncompressed to compressed. Another interesting chart that we really want to know, what is their traffic engineering strategy. 96% strongly had adopted to SRTE. Look at the adoption rate already in use today is 54%, evaluating 42%. That's a significant amount of number. But as I was also noticing through my interaction with the customer, and ACG server is also proven that there's a sharp increase in flex algo evaluation as well. So interest is wise that. And 4 to 11% say no plan for that, for traffic engineering tunnels. So on the similar note, we want to ask who's deploying centralized PC versus distributed PC, and this is fairly like 54% has distributed centralized PC, and 39% has a distributed PCE. In the form, I have also found out some customers are going for the hybrid model, which means they deploy the flex algo on the network, but they are using SRTE to stitch between the different flex algo. So they have some control, but they want to get the advantage of FlexAlgo because FlexAlgo can only use one label within the IGP domain. So they want to minimize the MSD, but maximize the SRT flexibility as well. So they got a hybrid model. I call it hybrid model. Another question that we asked, only 32% of our respondents selected the multicast as in their network. Out of 55% say they have plans to move to SR MPLS-based multicast. That's also an interesting point. This was one of the questions that I really want to ask. If the customer are moving to SRv6, what is their motivators? Why they're selecting SRv6 as a use case? Number one use case is advanced use cases. The SRv6 support, like SRv6 MUP, SFC, these kind of feature. So they have selected the advanced use case is at 88%. Network programming expect is 72%, like SFC has capable of showing you can go to the multiple SFCs. Actually, by the way, we have this demo in our Sienna booth. If you want to see, we can come stop by to our booth and we can show the SFC demo as well. So 72%. And leverage IP scalability aggregation, 60%. So these are the top three that we have selected. But since we have done the survey last 2 years ago, we want to see, is there a shift from the thinking why they're selecting SRv6 within 2 years? And the answer is a very interesting one. So almost, you can say 72% from 33% now selecting SRv6 because of the network programming capability. That's also in line with our understanding as well. And 60%, way up from the 25% saying the native scalability, IPv6 scalability, this is the main reason they want to do SRv6. And load balancing actually decreases from 42 to 28%. That's also interesting to note that. Okay, next slide is kind of which is your highest ranking use case. We kind of like provide some option, and we also let the customer select if they have not listed the item here. It's interesting to see that traffic engineering is still considered as the top main criteria. Like, look at the BGP card, 92%. This is significant amount of, from the 25% people who has responded. SFC and SRv6 MUP is extremely important for them. Actually, we have been reached out to multiple customers who want to co-work with us, co-develop with us the SRv6 MUP in their lab. And I ran out any issues in SRv6 MUP development. So we are working with a number of customers on SRv6 development as well. And the path tracing and microtab is third and fourth choices. These are the, you can say, survey results so far. I'm going to take brief time for, remember I talked about the migration plan. So I just want to briefly touch on those parts. I'm not going to go all over the slide, but if you have more questions about the migration plan, you can stop by our booth and ask questions. In a nutshell, this is a summary. If they want to do a migration plan, deployment plan, either they want to do coexistence and migrate to the new technology or coexist for the long duration, or they want to do interworking. Those are two choices. Majority of our customers want to stay here, the coexistent one. And when we talk to a customer, there's some unique combination that is coming to us. Since everybody wants to move to segment routing, I have come across where they want to move to LTP to SR, MPLS TP to SR, GAT.32 to SR. And what I recommend, some customers have shown interest to go to SRv6, but I tell them, why don't you migrate to SR MPLS v4 first, make your converged network SR MPLS v4, and from there you can go to SRv6. And some unique use case that comes to us was like, I have OSPF LDP, especially from the Latin America, and they want to move to SR, but on ISIs. So they are migrating between the two IGPs. So that's a little bit challenging. But then we have to worry about the OEM, service going from one IGP to second IGP, but where we are working with the customer to provide that as well. And the last I mentioned is the compressed with the uncompressed as well for SRv6. That's also a migration category. Interworking, this is an important point, and I'm going to use this slide and I'm going to end because I'm running out of time as well, is that most customers try to avoid the interworking, but in certain scenario, when you have service endpoint in the same transport, then you just need a transport interworking. This is acceptable for some degree. But if you have endpoint of service endpoint in different transport, then you need service gateway. And this is where I see customers think this is too complicated. They really try to avoid the last option as much as possible. They want to end up from the coexisting and maximum they want to go to transport interworking where the core has existing technology like RCPT or some other technology. They want still okay with transport interworking, but really try to avoid the service gateway where they have to insert the gateway in the middle to translate MPLS into SRv6. They really try to avoid it. So I'm going to finish this and skip this slide and end, but my ending remarks will be, come see our booth. We have SRv6 and EVPN and SFC demo ready for you guys. So why don't you stop by, have a chat with us. I can go over the deployment migration plan. If you have any question, I'm ready to help you guys out. Thank you very much.